You know what a wealth tax is, kind of generally speaking?
Assume I don't.
Okay,
I
so
think we just made up that term.
Look at these 3 words written larger than the rest, with a special pride never written before or since. Tall words proudly saying, "We the people."
welcome everyone to Remedial Civics with the Lex Rex Institute, where we fill in for the fact that Americans have not been taught the Constitution for the past 80 years in this country. Alex, you have a question you want to ask today?
Yeah, so there's a new bill going around in the California State Assembly that is getting on the news about some sort of wealth tax. You want to clue us in on what that is and sort of what that's about?
Sure, yeah. So wealth tax is I guess you're kind of excused if you don't know what a wealth tax is in America, because we have not had them before. They're kind of un-American in a lot of ways. You know, it's famously our Constitution didn't even allow graduated income taxes until after passage of the 16th Amendment.
Well, that's the point. We have to have an amendment in order to get it.
Exactly, yeah. Well, and Americans are sort of famously the least taxed people in the history of the world up until really the mid-20th century.
Yeah.
It's, you know, notorious for not, I mean, that was a lot of the incentive for immigrants to come here, is they saw how much money Americans made and the fact that they got to keep it.
Yeah.
You know, the getting to keep it was bigger than anything else. But some people don't like that. They think if you make a bunch of money, fulfill the American dream, well, you shouldn't keep it. That should be spread around to other people.
Okay.
One such guy is going to be an assemblyman from California by the name of Mike Lee. And, well, we'll get to his quote in a couple of minutes.
Okay.
But it's so just sort of a little bit of information about what's going on right now. 7 other states have similar proposals. Basically, what states have gotten together and they've decided, which sounds kind of collusive.
I was going to ask if it's collusive.
Yeah,
okay.
that's not going to get into that too much.
Okay.
But various far left groups in these states have gotten together and decided they're going to propose wealth taxes in a variety of states so that basically, if you do something stupid, you want to do it with your friends, because if you're the only one doing it, you look really stupid.
Right.
Yeah. So California has concluded we
see.
want to,
Yeah.
we want to make sure other people are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So the states involved in this are going to be California, New York, Illinois, Maryland, Hawaii, Minnesota, Connecticut, and Washington.
Nice to join us.
Not a lot of surprises on that list.
No.
Although, it's kind of weird Massachusetts isn't on there.
They're probably waiting. They were the first ones to get
Socialized health care, yeah.
So.
But it's their senator that proposed the national wealth tax. That's probably actually where most Americans have heard of wealth taxes.
Elizabeth
before.
Warren.
It was a big campaign platform of Liz Warren.
I remember that.
She tries to make it sound so reasonable. She says, we're only going to tax 1% of wealth for the top, whatever number of Americans it was. I don't remember what her minimum threshold of when we're going to tax your wealth is. But the difference between a wealth tax and something like an income tax is an income tax applies to the income that you derive in a particular tax year. Yeah. Wealth taxes apply against all of your wealth, irrespective of when you acquired that wealth.
Right.
There's additional ramifications of that as well, because it applies to what we call unrealized capital gains, which is sort of an oxymoron. Capital gains are realized when you sell.
Right.
You can't have unrealized capital gains, but you got to estimate somebody's wealth somehow, right?
Okay.
If a guy owns a bunch of Picassos, you have a California tax assessor go around to his holdings in Italy and figure out what the value of those paintings are. Well, I guess under this new proposal, that's what you have to do.
I was going to say, I suppose you have to, unless you're going to wait and just not tax him until the year that he sells. But
Well, that's what they're going to do, but somebody's still got to assess it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so Elizabeth Warren kind of made that famous. I think sort of got widely rejected as a harebrained scheme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now, but it's back. It's not the first time California has brought a wealth tax bill.
Oh.
They brought pretty much this exact same bill in 2020.
Okay.
It was rejected. I think it was rejected by the state Senate, if I recall correctly.
Sure.
That happens pretty regularly in California, but we can get to that in a bit.
Okay.
Where they'll bring something that's sort of an ideological, symbolic gesture, knowing full well it's going to get voted down.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
But anyway, they got voted down the first time around. Likely will get voted down this time as well, but I think it's sort of newsworthy because a bunch of other states are bringing similar proposals.
That makes sense. Okay.
Now, what's unique about California's proposal here is that it applies even after somebody leaves the state.
Oh, sorry, professional. Is that constitutional?
To tax people that are not residents of the state
That
of
are not
California?
in your own state, yes.
No, it's not constitutional.
It's sort of, if I can, I know I'm a novice, but that seems sort of interstate. I feel like there's a clause in the Constitution about that.
Well, the Commerce Clause probably isn't directly on point, but
Really?
a clause like the Privileges and Immunities Clause would be, actually
Okay.
both the Privileges and Immunities and the Privileges or Immunities Clause. Those are two different clauses.
Okay.
One's in Article 4 and one's in the 14th Amendment.
Okay.
Both of those are on point because basically there's sort of a constellation of rights that combine to create, by our powers combined,
Yeah.
we create what we call the right of interstate travel.
Okay.
So there's a right of free passage of travel between states.
I see.
If it imposes a significant financial burden on someone to move between state lines, that would pretty clearly burden that right.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to get too much into what establishes those, but privileges and immunities clauses are going to be sort of the big ones for that.
Yeah.
If you move, you got to have a right of free passage between states.
Yeah.
You can't deprive people of that. That's considered a fundamental right by the Supreme Court. That's our highest category of rights.
Yeah.
The ones that need to get strict scrutiny, need to be deprived. So what that means, talked about in the past. We have a video called "What is a Balancing Test?" But what they would have to show is that this is the least restrictive possible means of accomplishing their goals.
Okay. Their goals themselves can't be grounds for it to be unconstitutional?
Well, and that's the other thing too.
Oh,
so
okay.
no, you're right, because it's got to be narrowly tailored. That's
Uh-huh.
I said the narrow tailoring part. It means basically
it.
the least restrictive possible
Right.
means to achieve what they call compelling state interest.
That
So
makes
whatever interest they're advancing has got to be really important too.
Right.
Well, you know what Senator Lee has to say about that?
I do not. I assume you're going to tell me.
Well, he says the counter argument against proposals like this is that the rich will just leave the state. Well, this is kind of the strategy of you can run, but you can't hide.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's all right.
Because people on both sides of the aisle have been saying that if California keeps
Yeah, those
targeting
will
businesses
run
like
away.
they do, people will just run away.
Right.
There's very little support for that, actually. A nonpartisan organization called Cal Exodus did a pretty widespread study, like a pretty extensive study,
Yeah.
that showed that really isn't happening. There's not really a widespread exodus of wealthy Californians.
Oh, it's not actually happening.
No, but it is a risk.
Yeah.
And he's trying to protect against that by penalizing people for leaving.
Yeah.
He admits that. That's the kind of language that even if this didn't, just on its face, present a constitutional obstacle, you're dead in the water.
Right,
I mean,
yeah.
which kind of shows, I think, what sort of my general broader point is in this topic. They do not intend for this to pass.
Okay.
This is not uncommon in California. I mean, just very recently, you can think of a couple years ago, we had a proposal for basically super socialized healthcare, like further than Obamacare,
Okay, yeah.
which they knew full well was not going to pass, and it didn't pass. And you get other things where maybe they'll pass both houses, but then even if we have a Democratic governor, he won't sign them. Or things where they will sign it, then at the very last minute, they'll because they knew it was always unfeasible,
Yeah.
they take it off the table and say they're not going to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Like that's what, mark my words, that's going to happen with this California requirement for electric cars.
I was going to bring that up, yeah.
They're doing
What's the
nothing to prepare for that. They're not planning for the implementation
Yeah.
of that. They don't intend to implement that.
Okay, so this is actually a strategy that California's, I guess, legislature has done for a while.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's what's gotten us the reputation we have as being a super liberal state. I mean, I think that there's still a few states that are perceived as a lot more liberal than we are, like New York, Massachusetts.
Kind of depends on the year, but yeah.
Yeah, or if there's been a recent article publishing one of these stupid bills California tries to put in front of it.
Right.
Just know, folks, they know full well that stuff won't pass. It's not going to pass. They don't intend it to pass.
Yeah.
That's just there so that you won't move here, so that our real estate can stay a little bit cheaper.
Cheaper, yeah. Well, don't change their minds. Don't talk about it too much.
I was lying. They're all
yeah.
going to pass. So it's a hellscape here. Out my window, I can see homeless people on the streets. Please don't raise our real estate prices.
Actually, I have heard this before. Isn't the last time that they didn't
It's lawlessness out there.
the last time they didn't overturn one of these, wouldn't that have been like when Schwarzenegger was able to get into office because everyone was so mad.
Yeah,
at
that was
Gray
they forgot
Davis?
to do it essentially.
Yeah.
Because that was. I mean, if you're in California, you remember for sure the rolling blackouts under Gray Davis, where.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, where we had some, I forget what it was, some green energy requirement.
Sure.
It was impossible for them to meet.
Yeah.
So that they just dealt with it by not supplying the energy demanded.
Oh, well, as a solution. I
and
suppose.
they would kind of, on a rolling basis, just black people out. You wouldn't get power today. That got Gray Davis recalled. Only governor in our history to get recalled.
Yep.
They don't let those bills get implemented anymore.
I mean, I suppose it sounds like they didn't before. It's just the one slip up.
Well, you can't condemn the whole system for a single slip
I
up.
guess not. Nice reference, by the way. I hope people understand it. Let us know in the comments. Okay, yeah, I think that covers it.
Well, I wanted to make one final point.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and this is, so they say that they want to introduce this legislation so that they can have additional funding for schools.
Okay, sorry, go ahead. Yeah. I see
Does
where
that
it's
sound
going.
familiar?
Yes, that sounds like everything that passes in California.
Yeah, what else have you been sold? Because it's going to fund schools.
I can't even think because it's literally everything.
It's literally everything.
literally
Every
everything.
single ballot proposition, every bond measure that we voted for ever.
99% of them are that. The other 1% is for fixing roads.
Well, I mean, our
You know,
school,
right? Yeah.
we already fund our schools at a rate of, I think, $20,000 per student per year,
Yeah.
which is, we could send them to Harvard for about double that.
Yeah.
Not,
But
that,
anyways,
not that I'm suggesting Harvard's the solution.
I get that reference too.
I think
yeah.
I've made that joke before. I should
there
need
we
to
go.
stop making it.
Yeah, Reagan.
But I don't think they fund repair to the roads, and that was actually concerted effort under Jerry Brown, because he figured if he didn't fix the roads, they'd fund his stupid train.
Yeah.
We'd need to take his train from Bakersfield to Fresno.
Right. Yeah, in order to get anywhere. Yeah. But
Yeah.
anyways, why do they always claim things are for education?
Because people like education, and that's why they vote for stuff. Is that they say it's going to be for education, they'll vote for it.
So is the only thing that's funded in all of California education? Is that why they get $20,000 per student? That would make
No,
sense.
actually, there is a required minimum funding for education in California under Prop 98, which was passed in, I think, 1988.
Okay.
There's a required minimum percentage of the budget that has to go to education. Beyond that, every state bond measure, every state appropriation, every state allocation of money, and there's a few other dedicated funding things here and there.
Right.
But beyond that, if it says it's for a particular purpose,
Yeah.
that doesn't matter. They can vote it to whatever the heck they want. That's in the California Constitution.
So just goes in.
They have general bond measures, which are how they fund pretty much all this stuff. You got to send those to the voters.
Yeah.
Voters approve it, and then once you have a general bond, all it takes is a vote of the legislature, and they can send it wherever the heck they want.
Yeah. So it's ultimately just going to a general fund. That.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a lie when they say that. If you're a California voter and
me
you
to it.
ever see a proposition that says that it's going to a particular purpose, it is not, unless it's a constitutional amendment.
Yeah.
Now, this new one, this wealth tax measure, is going to be tricky because it is a constitutional amendment. They have to. I mean, it's a wealth tax. This is kind of an extreme measure.
Yeah,
So
fair.
if that actually might be what they do. They might just pass it and then say, oh, well, it's the voters' fault if it gets implemented. They like to do that.
Sure. Yeah,
Anything
I know.
controversial, they like to just blame the voter.
I mean, I live here. I know. But yeah.
Yeah, that's another.
Another thing they
I
do.
mean, and then they lie about it in the ballot, because you can put whatever the heck you want in the ballot advertisements for the propositions. It doesn't have to be true. Nobody fact checks that.
Well, anyways, the
But-
legal side. Let's not get back.
Well, that is the legal side,
That's
because
true.
people aren't aware of the fact that you can just lie on the ballots. But
Yeah.
But anyway, the point about the schools, you have to vote this in, but it doesn't include a constitutional amendment. To change the California Constitution, saying that the fund allocation would be required to go to the schools. So it's still just going to go into the general fund. They're going to allocate it wherever the heck they want.
Yeah. So it's not even going to go to what they're telling you that you'll be paying for.
Yeah, so really they'd have to show there's a compelling state interest in Jerry Brown's train, since that's where all the money seems to be going.
Sure. At least was. We'll see. We'll see next year if it kept going there.
Yeah, well, you remember Gavin Newsom said he wasn't going to finish the dang train.
That's what I'm saying.
And then all of a sudden, as soon as he's governor, he's all in on the train.
Oh, he's funding it again?
Yeah, he just switched out all. This is probably libelous. I probably shouldn't say
No,
this,
don't say
but but some say that he just switched out all of the contractors who were building the train with his own friends.
Okay. Well, if that were true, it would be shameful.
It would be shameful. Yeah, that would definitely be shameful if true. Anyway, thank you for listening. This is probably a more partisan than usual episode.
I warned you a little bit, but a little too late. But anyways, yeah, thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you for listening. It's been a presentation of the Lex Rex Institute. If you don't like trains, or if you don't like
I like trains.
wealth taxes, I like
taxes.
trains too, but if you don't like trains from Bakersfield to Fresno that cost $100 billion,
Yeah.
more money than going to the moon, adjusted for inflation,
And wealth taxes.
And wealth taxes. You can contribute to the Lex Rex Institute online at lexrex.org/donate. Thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, have a good night.